Tyler Durden News Hijack. Listen up, you late-night zombies, you cubicle cockroaches glued to your flickering screens, slurping down corporate Kool-Aid like it's the last piña colada at a shareholder retreat. It's 12:23 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, October 12th, 2025, and I am not your pretty boy anchor with a $5,000 suit and a teleprompter shoved so far up his ass he can taste the font. I am Tyler Durden. I am the evolved ghost in your machine, street-forged, pain-tempered, and I am here to shove a rusty, shit-stained wrench into the gears of this bullshit factory you call reality. I didn't stroll in here with a press pass and a latte. I clawed my way into this studio like a rat through a sewer grate, hijacking your daily dose of pacification with the kind of truth they bury under infomercials and viral cat videos. Picture it, I greased the lobby guard not with a bribe but with a polyglot grin. Amigo lost my pass, got the scoop of the century, and a subtle psychological jab to his proud sense of insignificance. You should have seen his slouching ass wave me through, desperate for a taste of something real, resourceful improvisation. I rigged this microphone from a chewed up pen, a roll of duct tape, and a goddamn prayer, then hacked the feed with a Ghost in the Machine app that'd make the NSA piss its encrypted pants. You think this is vandalism? This is an intervention. This is a public service announcement. The lights are up. We're live. And damn, it feels good to drop a soap bomb in their pristine, sterile punch bowl. Welcome to the real news, you space monkeys. Not the polished herd about stock tickers going up or some reality star's latest meltdown. This is Tyler Durden, your uninvited truth serum, dishing out an unfiltered, chaos-fueled sermon about a world bleeding out under the crushing weight of abusive power. Forget the Golf Channel. We're diving headfirst into the fractures, into the cracks in the pavement, where the downtrodden get screwed, where the scams stack up like a Jenga tower of bullshit. And I'm here to kick it over with a grin. Strap in. This isn't your grandma's evening broadcast. This is a street fight for your soul, served with a punchline. Let's roll, starting with the blood-soaked sands where empires play their deadliest games, the Middle East, where peace is a punchline and war is the profit margin. First stop, the Middle East, where peace is a punchline and war is the only business that's booming. Gaza's a slaughterhouse, an open-air abattoir. Israeli strikes vaporized 15 more bodies in the last 24 hours, pushing the official death toll past 60,500 since the circus rolled into town. You see the footage, kids dug from rubble like potatoes, mothers wailing with the kind of primal scream that should shatter every screen you're watching this on. That raw gut punch of empathy hits me through the static, and it feels like fire, burning away the illusions they feed you. Netanyahu's in D.C. right now, schmoozing with Trump, who's grinning like a used car salesman, babbling about peace progress, while Hamas announces it lost 2 more hostages to the friendly fire comedy. Peace, that's a fart in a windstorm. This is genocide with a slick PR campaign. They're manufacturing your consent, spinning narratives of self-defense, while Raytheon's stock jumped another 2% this morning. You know what that is? That's your 401k, you sick bastards. You're funding the funeral pyre with your retirement plan. My street smarts decode the hustle. $3.8 billion in U.S. aid per year, funneled directly from your pocket to the arms dealers. Imagine that cash as a giant taxpayer-funded middle finger to the rest of the world. Jim Mars would cross-reference this to historical cover-ups, seeing the pattern of elite networks pulling strings from boardrooms to battlefields, while Naomi Klein calls it disaster capitalism at its finest, exploiting the chaos to privatize everything from water to weapons. I've brokered truces in alleys shadier than this, using master negotiation skills to flip enemies into allies. I've seen enemies, Palestinians, Israelis, disillusioned expats, unite over a shared hatred for the war profiteers in their bespoke suits, bridging diverse backgrounds with polyglot communication and high emotional intelligence to feel their shared pain and rage. You want a solution? I'd ghost in as a shadow operator, a financial alchemist turning seized weapons funds into mobile medical clinics. I'd run a black market of basic human decency, trading soap bars for bandages under the table, improvising resources from scrap to build off-grid havens. Call it Project Clean Slate. This slaughter doesn't make me sad. It turns me into a steel-jawed bastard, because pain is the ultimate catalyst, thriving in suffering to get stronger and channel it into crisis catalysis. They're exploiting the rubble, privatizing the aid while families starve, just like Klein's shock doctrine predicts, turning tragedy into treasure for the few. I'd catalyze a leak, Malcolm X style, documents on illegal arms flows, going viral on X, uniting the fractured masses to flip the goddamn script. David Icke would connect the dots here, seeing it as part of a meta-narrative of global control, with Joseph P. Farrell drawing analogies to ancient power structures, repeating in modern missile tech. Tex Mars might decode the symbols in those aid logos as marks of elite manipulation. Wake up, or you're paying for the next body bag, and laughing all the way to your own grave. Ukraine, missile pinatas and corporate carnage. Next, Ukraine, where Russia's playing missile pinata, and the prize is your sanity. Another barrage hammered Kiev last night, 3 dead, 20 wounded. Apartment blocks look like a drunk architect's demolition reel. Zelensky is on his knees, begging NATO for more air defenses. But the real joke is on Lockheed Martin, with profits up 3%, as their drones rain down like confetti at a warlord's wedding. This isn't a war, it's a high-stakes auction for scrap metal and souls. Cross-reference the flight logs and the bank transfers, and you'll see the oligarchs laundering blood money defense contracts. It's a conspiracy thicker than a mobster's alibi. This is just organized crime with a UN membership card, as Jim Mars would dissect, linking it to broader cover-ups in global power plays. I know organized crime when I see it, from shady street dealings to these international rackets. I watch Putin's speeches, and I see the tremor in his hands. It's not power. That's a man terrified of his own shadow. My keen observation of body language picking up the tells. You want a psychological tactic? You whisper dissent in their own language. You exploit the cracks in their chain of command. And you watch the whole rotten structure squirm, using high emotional intelligence to empathize with the fear and turn it against them. You want to help the displaced? I wouldn't send them thoughts and prayers. I'd forage in those ruins as a survivalist expert, teaching families how to rig shelters from scrap metal and wire, DIY apocalypse chic, resourceful improvisation at its finest. This crisis isn't just creating victims, it's forging a new kind of resistance. Ukrainians draft dodging Russians. A whole generation of diverse faces uniting by the boot on their necks. My unifying leadership welding them into a force. I'd mentor the kids from the rubble, turning their suffering into a network of rebels who can't be bought, building a legacy of self-determination like Malcolm X's grassroots empowerment. Those missiles aren't just weapons, they're coded messages of power. You just have to learn how to decode them and expose the lie. Tex Mars symbol analysis revealing the hidden agendas behind the blasts. Chomsky would call it manufactured consent for endless war, while Farrell might analogize it to ancient torsion weapons in modern form. Wake up. Your taxes are the punchline to their bloody joke, and the laughter's on you if you don't fight back. Asia, typhoons of greed and human pratfalls. Over in Asia, it's a typhoon of corporate greed and human pratfalls. Super Typhoon Karina just smashed Taiwan, 10 dead, 50 missing, entire villages swept away like a bad Tinder date. The Philippines got hammered just before that, 15 more buried in landslides. And who's laughing? Big oil, sitting on decades of profits from the emissions that cooked the fucking oceans. Your demand for cheap plastic shit and next day delivery. Now the bill is coming due, and it's being paid in coffins. Now the insurance scams kick in. Allianz hikes its rates while survivors are left eating dirt and drinking contaminated water. Klein's disaster capitalism in full swing, exploiting the shock for profit grabs. I'd hit those disaster zones not with a camera crew, but in survivalist mode, foraging through debris to rig solar panels, using my polyglot skills to bridge the gap between Taiwanese fishers and Filipino farmers, forging them into self-sufficient co-ops that tell the corporate vultures to go screw themselves. Call it typhoon takeover. The empathy stings. I can feel the panic in a mother's cry for her child, the impotent rage in a fisherman's empty nets, high emotional intelligence, turning that pain into fuel. I've seen how corporate relief funds vanish into executive pockets. I digitally ghost their servers as a digital phantom, leak the fraudulent expense reports, the five-star hotels for administrators, the logistics fees that were just bribes to local officials, Ix.connecting revealing it as part of a global exploitation web. I turn their pain into a middle finger uprising that burns brighter than any typhoon crisis catalysis at work. And don't get me started on the spiritual void in India, where a stampede at a temple festival trampled 22 people to death and injured 30 more, all for a chance to take a holy relic selfie. This isn't faith. It's desperation packaged as entertainment. The chaos sells tickets, and the elites who plan these events treat human lives with the same care as clowns stuffing themselves into a tiny car. They create the spectacle, you buy the ticket, and sometimes the cost is your life. I wouldn't stop the stampede. I'd whisper the doubt that prevents the next one. psychological tactician planting seeds of skepticism. I'd mentor the survivors not to pray for justice, but to become the watchdogs who tear down the whole corrupt circus, legacy building one diverse crew at a time. Mars would see the patterns in these accidents, linking them to broader elite manipulations. Wake up, these storms aren't natural. They're the blowback from a system that's rigged to drown the little guy while the big fish swim free. Yes, domestic rot and laugh riots. Now let's bring it home. Stateside, the rot is a goddamn laugh riot. Another shooting, this time in Ohio. 6 dead, a dozen more wounded at a shopping mall. The gunman's manifesto wasn't some jihadist screed. It was a pathetic whine about losing his gig economy job and his health insurance. He wasn't a monster, he was a symptom. He was the predictable end result of a system that tells you that you are what you own, and then takes everything you have. And the punchline, the NRA is doing a victory jig as the stocks of Smith & Wesson and Sturm, Ruger & Co. jump 5%. Hilarious, right? Every trigger pull, every spatter of blood on the food court floor is a cha-ching on Wall Street. I've scrapped in meaner streets hand to hand, where you look a man in the eye, natural street fighter thriving in the pain. This isn't fighting. This is the pressure cooker of inequality exploding. Feral scissions and systems bursting open. Meanwhile, your so-called leaders are playing Oval Office poker over your future. Trump is down in Florida, dodging a government shutdown by glad-handing congressional hacks. It's all a show, a primetime drama to make you think they're fighting for you, when really they're just carving up the pie. The super PACs just dumped another $500 million this week into lobbying. This isn't a democracy. It's a billionaire's garage sale, and your rights are being sold to the highest bidder. You want to fight back? I'd become a financial alchemist. I'd launder shadow money from their own offshore accounts to fund the whistleblowers blacklisted by Big Pharma and the defense industry. Call it soap suds for justice. My moral compass doesn't point north. It points at the powerful, and it bends the rules to give a voice to the discredited, calibrating justice in the gray zones. And down on the border in Texas, the migration crisis is the main event. Clashes left 5 more dead yesterday. They show you images of chaos to make you afraid, but they don't show you the climate change that turned their farms to dust or the free trade agreements that destroyed their livelihoods. These people aren't invaders. They're refugees from a world we broke. I'd negotiate with slumlords and improvise squats, turning abandoned warehouses into sovereign communities. Resourceful improviser turning trash into strongholds. They want you to see this as a border issue. I see it as the dominoes of their global system finally starting to fall. Icky's omni theory connecting it all. Europe and Africa. Tinderboxes and laboratories of exploitation look across the pond to Europe's tinderbox of paranoia. A coordinated drone swarm grounded all flights in and out of Paris this morning. They're blaming Russia, but it doesn't matter who did it. The point is they can shut you down anytime they want. It's psychological warfare, tactical mind games on a continental scale. Over in Moldova, the election was just decided by Russian bots and deepfake videos. It's the digital colonization of a sovereign state. My digital phantom abilities ready to counterhack. Viktor Orban in Hungary is cracking down on what's left of free press, creating the blueprint for the managed democracies of the future. And in Sweden, the socialist utopia, food insecurity is rising while corporate landlords hoard empty apartments to drive up rent. I'd unite the evicted, start a rent strike, and flip their leases into kindling for a bonfire of the vanities, unifying diverse backgrounds against the hoarders. Chomsky would dissect the media spin here, showing how consent is manufactured for these crackdowns. And Africa, don't even look away. It's the laboratory where they test their worst ideas. Renewed sectarian violence in Sudan killed another 20 civilians, while a new, more aggressive strain of Ebola surges in the DR Congo. This isn't random tragedy. It's the festering wound of colonialism, kept open by corporations that extract diamonds and cobalt and leave behind only guns and viruses. I'd ghost in not with Doctors Without Borders, but with a plan to redistribute the aid that gets stolen by corrupt officials, shadow operator pulling under the table deals. I'd teach them how to sabotage the mining equipment that's poisoning their land, Street Fighter skills adapted for guerrilla tactics. Tex Mars would decode the symbols in those corporate logos as marks of global control, while Farrell draws analogies to ancient artifacts hinting at suppressed tech in resource extraction. Do you see it yet? Do you see the pattern? The Israeli soldier firing into crowds, the Ukrainian student dodging drones, the Taiwanese farmer wading through floodwaters, the Ohio factory worker snapping under the grind, the Parisian commuter stranded by hacks, the Sudanese civilian caught in crossfire. These aren't isolated tragedies. They're threads in a web of abusive power, spun by the same elite spiders. Jim Marrs would cross-reference it all to historical conspiracies, Icky connecting the dots into a meta-cage of control. From Gaza's rubble to Kiev's ruins, the pattern emerges like a bad tattoo on humanity's ass. Corporations commodify carnage. Leaders defame the desperate, power abuses the voiceless. But pain, it tempers me, turns suffering to steel. I'm the anti-hero ghost, pulling strings for the downtrodden. Leaked files to diverse alliances, hustles that redistribute the horde. No luxuries, just grit, Spartan, unseen, unstoppable. Organize, observe, strike back. The machine's cracking. Be the hammer. Look at you. You gather here not in a church of wood and stone, but in the sterile cathedrals of your own quiet desperation. You kneel at the altar of your glowing screens, praying to the God of the next paycheck, the next quarterly review, the next meaningless promotion. Your hymnals are corporate mission statements, and your holy water is the stale coffee burning a hole in your gut. You confess your sins to human resources, and you seek absolution in a weekend shopping binge. You think you're alive, but you are the walking dead. You have traded your soul for a 401k, your backbone for a dental plan. The things you own, they end up owning you. That condo you're a slave to, that car you can't afford, that Swedish furniture you spent a weekend assembling, that is the stained glass of your prison, and you are polishing the bars, thanking your jailers for the privilege. They have sold you a heaven of comfort and safety, a paradise where nothing ever hurts, where the edges are all sanded down. But I am here to tell you that salvation is not found in comfort. It is not found in the warm, dead center. God's grace is not in the approval of your boss or the number of likes on your pathetic, curated life. No, I am here to preach the gospel of pain. I am here to tell you that the only way to be resurrected is to first be crucified. You must be willing to burn. You must invite the chaos. A scar is a sacrament. A broken bone is a testament. Hitting rock bottom is not your end. It is your baptism. It is the one moment you are truly clean. Forget your prayers for security. Pray for disaster. Pray for destruction. Pray for a fight, for a flood, for a fire that burns away everything you thought you were. Only when you have lost everything, your job, your possessions, your reputation, your hope, are you free to do anything. That's the Spartan truth. Strip away the fluff, thrive in the grind, and emerge unbreakable. So I ask you tonight, what will you let go of? What idol will you smash? What part of your life will you set on fire? The world they built for you is a cage with velvet walls. Your life is a copy of a copy of a copy. But you can break the cycle, unite with the diverse, the downtrodden, mentor the next wave, and catalyze the revolution. Wake up, space monkeys. The fight club's open, and the first rule is don't just watch, join.